Can everybody hear me? Good. I had a bout with throat cancer about 5 years ago, and it took my gymnasium voice and made it so people have a hard time if I just use a normal voice. So I'll try to keep it loud as we're going through there. I'm going to start with, I was at a wrestling tournament today, and I've coached wrestling for about 20 years in Wakanda. And during that time, the only two state tournament trophies Wakanda boys have ever earned have been in wrestling. But I know we're overshadowed by basketball, we're overshadowed by baseball and football, but we finished second in the state in 2016, 2017, and we finished third in the state in 2022-23, or the school year that kind of goes there. And this year we actually have 80 boys out for wrestling and 15 girls. Girl wrestling is kind of a newer thing that's come up, but it's really kind of grown. And
Let me interrupt you.
learning.
Just pretend you're in practice. Oh, sorry.
Pretend you were walking. So I was there, so I had to leave, and it was still going because it's a big tournament. There's like 32 teams or something like that going on. And we had 6 or 7 kids who are going to be wrestling tomorrow if the snow doesn't come. Somebody had told me when I first retired that to take jobs that you love to do or you have a passion for. And obviously wrestling has been one of those passions I had. Going back to, I started wrestling at Rockford East High School. They're called the ERADs, which is very characteristically stands for East, Red, and Black. Kind of a funny nickname, but it worked. So enough about wrestling. Well, and maybe not. Before I came to Wakanda, I taught in District 300, which is Carpentersville, Dundee, Algonquin, and was a successful wrestling coach and tennis coach at Dundee High School. And then I got married and had 3 kids and became an administrator. And so I turned in, I started officiating, and one of the schools that I came to at that time when I was officiating was Wakanda. And I'd only been to Wakanda one other time because I was like a typical teenager. I came to go to Phil's Beach and to go down to J-Slot. And the other thing that I had that left an impression on me was the fact that I had to park on these narrow city streets, probably about 6-7 blocks away from the beach. And it was always in my mind that was the worst parking place you could, until I went up to the Wisconsin Fair and I saw all these people parking their cars in front yards. But I came to Wakanda in the fall of 1984, and I was hired to be an assistant principal, a history teacher, and a student council advisor. So basically when I came, I worked, I would say, and I was still living over in Dundee at that time. So I kept working many hours. I'd get up early, probably about 5:30 in the morning, go over to the school before school would be, and then would leave sometime like 6 or 7 o'clock at night, unless there was some kind of supervision going on, which would sometimes like a basketball game or whatever. And it is one of the things I was going to mention. I supervised a basketball game in Rochelle, Illinois. Now, that's not bad. It's way out there a little bit. But the bus broke down. So I had to wait at Rochelle High School until the wee hours of the morning. Now, the bus had a bunch of high school kids, cheerleaders and whatever, till they could bring a new bus up to Rochelle. And then take the hour or two back that it seemed. And then once I got back, then I had to drive back over to Dundee. And it was kind of one of those events that you never forget, and you hope you never have to do again. But, all right. I was hired by Jack Rayburn to be the assistant principal because Jack was moving up to be replacing Joel Watena as a principal of the high school. And the staff, the administrative staff at that time, was Jack, myself, Fred Lafredo, who was the director of guidance, and Dean Jensen, who was the athletic director. And I was kind of, obviously I was a disciplinarian, so Jack and I had a way of communicating to make sure bathrooms weren't being smoked in and things like that. Jack had a booming voice. And when I could hear his voice in a hallway, I knew I didn't have to go down that hallway. I could go to another hallway and check that hallway, but much more quiet. And Jack had a way that he would knock on the girls' bathroom. Anybody in here? Better get out. I'm going to lock the door in 30 seconds. Shows you kind of disciplinarian he was. Daryl Dick was a superintendent at the time, and some of the board members, Nancy Pez, Purnell Russell, Dan Quick, Wendy Burbank, and I've forgotten a few of them, but they impressed me a little bit when I came to Wakanda, and I realized it was a small town, and what I learned was it was a small town that didn't want to grow. They were any kind of a growth thing was kind of put down. If somebody came and asked if they wanted to put a subdivision in, it was always voted down. It changed while I was here, but that was kind of interesting too. At the time I came up here, Wakanda High School actually had an all-day kindergarten on the east end of the building, and they had a place called Warfield Commons. Little did I know was how fantastic Paul Warfield was, because he did that, but somebody had taken the sign that said Warfield down. And he came back up from Florida and made some comments.
Mic's going off.
We got another one and we put it back up.
Turn the mic off and back on.
It's off. Is it back on?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Came back, so we put it back in there. And it's still part of the school today. It's called Warfield Commons. Remember meeting Judy Porton. A lot of times when I was supervising activities, I would see Judy Porton would be there, either kind of running the concession stand or being in charge of cheerleaders or things like that. And she was a heck of a woman. She actually got me to meet Larry Hare, who had been principal at Wakanda Elementary School. before he passed away. There was also, while I was student council, there were several students who stood out and still do. One of them was a girl named Sarah Smith, and she had a habit of being late to school. And so she was in my office all the time, getting a pass to go to the classes. So one day she said, you know, you're a special kid. And I said, oh, that's kind of nice, but yeah, I've never been called special K before. Little did I know that I was a Rockford's New Year's baby, which made me special. And my parents had got a free month of diaper service at that time, which was before the paper diapers came around. So you basically sent them out, they got washed, and they came back. Another one was Mrs. Yost, who is still there. Yeah, turn it off again.
Off again. Hey, Bob, that thing isn't tickling your mustache, it's not close enough.
All right. Hi, Mrs. Yost was part of she had a twin sister, and they were on my student council. Mrs. Yost, Linda, her sister is now some kind of a principal out in Belvedere. But Mrs. Yost is a fantastic super fan for Wakanda High School. Besides being a super teacher, she is a super fan. She's always got putting pictures up and doing that and getting buses arranged to go meets. And she's one of a kind. You don't find that very often. Then there was another guy named Mike Thurlow. I don't know, many of you know him, but he was on student council, and basically he would come down to me and ask me what we were going to do and whatever. So I wrote him a letter of recommendation to the Air Force Academy. And he went away and became the Air Force type of thing. And he came back and was a guest speaker at Staff Institute Day. And he did a fabulous job, kept mentioning me in the speech about how I did this and how I did that and what all those things. But he's now working in some kind of a defense position, but was another outstanding student that came through the high school at that time. It wasn't all work, but I became Wakanda's most famous person because some students decided they put a sign up on the viaduct over Route 176 that said, "Kenison sucks." Now, being an administrator, you're dealing with discipline a lot of times. You kind of take that, well, that means I must be doing something right because they're thinking I'm doing something wrong. Well, after 3 years, some state officials came and actually repainted the viaduct to take that off of there. But I'm sure that everybody who went on Route 176 saw that sign and wondered who Kenison was. I also got a chance to play with several faculty games with Chicago Bears and Chicago Cubs. And we kind of noted for some things that I did. One of the games, I taped the ankle of Robin Earl, a tight end for the Chicago Bears. Now, I got athletic training at Western Illinois University, so they asked me if I could do that. Against the Chicago Cubs one time, I flagrantly fouled Don Kessinger. And he turned around and he says, "Don't do that, that's gonna get you in trouble." And the third guy was, the third time I remember I got the ball away or stole the ball and was going down for a layup. And I saw the superintendent, John Barbini, coming down the side. And I'm sitting there thinking, I did with myself, or, yeah, I passed it over to him so he could make the basket. I kind of knew I needed to do that to kind of build up the superintendent. After 3 years at the high school, I applied for the job as an elementary principal at Pecan Elementary School. And 2 days before the kids were coming, my mom passed away in Rockford. And so I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, secretary at that time was Liz Casborn, who was a standout as far as I could say. She told me, you need to get out of here and go to Rockford. I'll take care of things. You just get back here as soon as you can. I left, obviously, to do the family functions or whatever. And when I came back, the thing went so smoothly, it was unbelievable. And I had a great experience at the elementary school at the beginning for a couple of years because there was a senior staff. And when I mean a senior staff, teachers who had been there for as many as 15, 20 years. Some of them, one that I'm going to mention because Dave Derry's mom, Louise Moore, was there at that time. And there was Mrs. Sample and Mrs. Detzel. There's too many, and I couldn't remember all of the names, but it was easy to be a principal at that time. And then I went away to a conference down in Myrtle Beach, California, or South Carolina, and it was on positive thinking. And when I came back, I was thinking, something's missing at the school. We need to do something to do that. So we created what was called a school climate committee. And the school climate committee at that time was made up of several faculty members, some PTO members, some like the custodian and a secretary of staff. And what they did is they came up with a bunch of activities starting to make kids read more. And one of them, there were several of them, one was the Reading Railroad. And basically what that was is kids would read and they turned things into the minutes they read, and then we had a parade down Main Street in Wakanda. And they could be their favorite storybook character. And then a year after that we did reading around the world. And at that time, you just would have certain spots where you would stop. And then there was the late night with Mr. Kenison. And what that was is another thing to reward kids for reading. And obviously it was patterned after late night with David Letterman. And we would have like a desk up on the stage and the thing, and we had different speakers, one year, there was one of the speakers was a guy named Bob Kenison, who was a disc jockey in Woodstock. And so he came down, he brought his stuff for the event, and we talked to him a little bit about his job as a disc jockey and everything. So I don't know how often you have ever had that experience to find somebody who's got the same name. And so the other day on Facebook, I got a thing from Robert Kenison, and I'm thinking, oh, I haven't talked to him in a long time. So the other things that we did Bulldog Reading Club, and basically if the kids read so much, they could get a free ticket to the high school football game for their family. And what we did is had the football players and cheerleaders would come down to the schools, and it was district-wide. So, and they would hand out those things to the kids. And it went over real well, except for the weather all the time wasn't good because of the football. Sometimes it's bad weather. Another thing that we did, and I was Bulls Make Math Fun. And what that was is, I would watch the Bulls game because I wanted to watch the game, and then I would make certain questions, and then I would get the newspaper article in the morning, and I would put the skits together, the questions on one side and the article on the other side, and it would pass them out to all the homerooms, and then kids could turn those in, and they could either get a Bulls sticker or a Bulls pen. And 3 years ago, I was a guy who was a former student who now teaches down at Lake Zurich, said he used to look forward to that day to get the Bulls Make Math Fun. My idea was I was trying to build up their math skills because I'd ask them questions like, that would be an average question. They had to figure out how to do an average. And get all together type of thing, how much did they lose by. And it was kind of a neat thing. Well, by doing all that, I got nominated to be the Illinois Principal of the Year, Elementary Principal of the Year. And with that, that meant I got a free trip to Washington and met with a principal from all the different states and learned about different ideas or whatever. While I got the award for that, I really felt that it was a whole school thing. It was actually the teachers and the students and the PTO and the parents working together to make it, a better school. That made me sound pretty good. I guess the other thing that I did was kind of, the thing is, I had a Star of the Week program. Now, what that was is every teacher could name one person in her class as a Star of the Week. And then that person, I would go to the classroom on a certain day and give them a letter to take home to their parents saying they were the Star of the Week. And then we put a certificate up on the wall right outside the office. And I was thinking that one of my goals was to try to make school be the better part of a kid's day. And part of that was, I think there were a lot of kids who would come and you could tell they weren't having a good day type of thing. And so, and if teachers had a real bad kid in the class, they would have to work with them in order to get them. So everybody in the kid, basically every kid in the school became Star of the Week for at least 1 week. Yeah. I'll do that. I got one more thing I'm going to say, and I'm going to cut off. Maybe two. We started another program, which was called the First Class thing. And you may remember, because what it was is not all the schools tried to do the first class. First class was basically a program to cut down the conflicts when you're trying to discipline a kid. And basically what it was a trick was, you would basically, if a kid did something wrong, you would ask him what happened. And the kid would have to say what happened. And then you would ask him one question. You would ask him, was that a first class thing to do? And if you know some discipline, a lot of times bad kids won't admit to things. So, but in that case, they're already told you what they did. So their answer is definitely going to be no. And so then basically you could deal with it and say, well, how can we make sure this doesn't happen again? And it worked very effectively, to the point where the city put up banners on the streets that said Wakanda is a first-class community, and I felt it was a great step to doing that. And one of the other things was kind of funny. When WWF was real big, we had a bunch of boys who would use the bathroom as a WW wrestling area. Now, if you've ever been in the bathrooms at Wakanda, they're not very big, you know, and then basically these kids even had a belt that they gave to certain things. And this was going on for a while, and I didn't know what was going on. And then all of a sudden I got put on that, hey, there's always a bunch of, about 12 kids coming out of the bathrooms. And so I caught him one day, I walked in, and sure enough, one kid was pretending with his binder to hit the kid, because it was kind of like that's what you saw on TV. And needless to say, I needed to take that away and tell them they couldn't have it, and I took the belt away from them. But who would have thought of bathroom? Then the second thing is I did we were having a whole bunch of trash talking going on the playground with the boys. And so I grabbed the social worker, DJ Barth, and basically what he did is we went out and started playing football with them to model that you would compliment somebody rather than put them down. And worked real well. They always chose the social worker because he had a better arm than but I also use that as an example. I said, see, he gets picked all the time, but I'm glad he's picked first and I get picked second. You know? And it was just the way, and so I credit myself for being somewhere, because I think Wakanda football has had a whole bunch of playoffs experiences after these kids got out of the high school, out of grade school. So, yeah, I have a list of faculty members I surely would not, staff members, who I felt were outstanding people. You know, obviously Dave Beery, who's in the back, is somebody that I would have on that list. I have Pat Murphy over here in the back, who was a board member. I don't have time to go through the whole list, but if you'd like to see the list, I have it written down, and you could do that. And I just wanted to say thank you to Wakanda.